Hello, booktubers and super friends. Roy here, my channel Roy Reads Anything, with the interrupting hands of Dr. Jennie Barnsley.
Hello, everybody.
And I'm going to talk about A Christmas Carol, other Dickens Christmas stories and books that I've been reading because of the time of year. So all of this came about because Katie, Books and Things, suggested a read-along of Dickens' Christmas books, of which there are five. A Christmas Carol that's extremely well known, and 4 other ones. So I've been doing that. But at the Christmas Carol stage, I sort of thought it would be interesting to read some other adaptations, versions, etc. of that particular story. Nevertheless, I started with the great original. I have the annotated version, which I first heard about on the channel of Kelly, Books I'm Not Reading. And this is great. It's got a massive introduction, gives loads of context, the history, how it fits into Dickens' writings, how he came to write it, why the Americans hated it, and all sorts of stuff. Well, because he did a travel book in America and was critical of lots of American things, which Americans were not keen on. So they thought he'd been a bad guest. So much so that when they reprinted A Christmas Carol, which they could because of the way copyright worked in those days,
it didn't.
Not internationally. One edition, they added a sequel where Dickens himself finishes writing A Christmas Carol, is full of self-satisfaction, having written a great book, and then Dickens, is visited by spirits who chastise him for his bad treatment of the Americans. So the error of his ways is all of that. Anyway, it's just one thing I learned from this, although I must admit I preferred to read it straight through in a regular book like this paperback, and I read the sort of side notes and what have you subsequently, because that's the way I roll. So, real A Christmas Carol with Scrooge and the 3 spirits and Marley's ghost, all that sort of thing. I'm assuming people know it, so if you've never read it, you don't want any spoilers, come back later. Do read it. It's pretty short, really good, but it's this story that's been adapted so many times. Unfortunately, a lot of people probably think, don't need to read that one, I know what happens, but there's lots to it in the text. I've read it many times, coming back to it, find lots of cool stuff each time.
And it's not massive, is it?
It isn't. No, I think you could read it in a couple of hours. Yeah. You got your sort of it's social commentary about attitudes to poverty in Victorian times, made quite an impact apparently. It popularised, probably not invented, but popularised lots of things that we now have as part of Christmas. It's a ghost story. Some people say, is it really a ghost story? Well, I think it definitely is. It's got at least one major ghost, plus countless ghosts seen out of the window. The visitation ones, they're spirits. I mean,
spirits, ghosts.
Spirits. I know. And although you could say, well, it's not like a horror story, it's always has some spooky elements. Even in Mr. Magoo, the cartoon. Very frightening bit.
Very, very frightening. Galileo.
But I'm mainly going to talk about printed editions that I've read. So, having read A Christmas Carol by Charles Dickens, which I believe came out in something like 1842, something like that. I know that Dickens gets widely copied, and sort of thought it'd be fun to read one of these imitation stories. So I found The Christmas Shadows by W.M. Swepstone. That came out in 1850. So, a bit later, everyone, A Christmas Carol would be well embedded by then. It has lots of similarities. So instead of Scrooge, you get Mr. Cranch, who's the mean guy. He is visited by spirits, that sort of thing. But there's difference. Little Ned.
Little Ned.
there's an ill child and all this kind of thing. Yeah. But differences. Mr. Cranch, well, for a start, he's not a money lender. He makes clothes. So you learn about how piecework operated. So basically, he has a factory and premises, but the people who work on the premises are the cutters. These three guys who cut out the cloth into sections. The piece workers, the needle women, and one of the subtitles for a publication of this book was A Tale of the Poor Needle Women. They come, take away the stuff and make the clothes in their own premises for like a pittance. They have to bring them back, they have to be perfect, they're penalised for being late, all this sort of stuff. So that is pretty interesting, that sort of iniquity, because although they've got jobs, they're not like beggars exactly, but they are, really on the breadline, at the mercy of the factory owner, who... Now, unlike Scrooge, I think Scrooge has a philosophy, and his kind of cruelty is kind of, up front. He will explain it and send you on your way. Crunch thinks he's a good guy. He thinks, I'm like a father to these girls, I give them their living. All that sort of stuff, and they'd be lost without me. They'd
have no work without me.
Yeah.
For me.
And he's a family man, so it's different, but in a way worse. So he's got this sort of paternalistic attitude, and he goes through the whole thing of becoming illuminated and changing his ways. Bit different because there's things like loads of goblins. Come back to where those goblins might have come from. Yes. It's when he's trying to do a Dickens with things like funny character names and stuff, it's pretty cringy. When he's not bothering with that, it's actually quite good. So worth reading. It's kind of a... for people who think, oh yeah, here's that story again. I don't really want to read the story. I'll read this version of it. Fine. So Christmas Shadows, got that one under my belt. I was actually interested, are there any more? Via Wikipedia, I came across Job Warner's Christmas by Horatio Alger Jr. Came out in 1863, published in newspapers in America, and it found its way over here as well. So I'll put up a Christmas page from a British newspaper, so you can see how the wall of text had lots of Christmassy stuff on that page, and one was this short story, which is like a hyper compressed A Christmas Carol without the supernatural elements. So you've got Christmas Cur. Yeah, you barely say it and it's done. So there's a clerk like Bob Cratchit, works for a stingy boss who refuses to give him a raise, and he's trying to raise his family and he's got no money. And when he's walking home, this clerk guy, he sees like a waif begging in the streets and takes her in and looks after her. Observed by his boss, who's so struck by this, he mends his ways and showers goodness upon the clerk and the child and everybody. So it's like a miniaturized version of feel-good stuff published during the Civil War, and it reminded me of TV adverts, like supermarket Christmas adverts. So it's like, oh yeah, just give me that shot of cosy, fuzzy, warm feeling. Bang, it's done. Also, Louisa M. Alcott wrote
Writer on the Little Women.
Little Women and
books
all those
and all
lot. Yeah.
kinds of stuff.
A
Gothic
Christmas
horror.
Dream That Came True is one of hers, where you have a not horrible but obviously spoiled child who has a dream, and it leads to, she's like, I don't want to do Christmas anymore, we've had it all before, can't it be new, I want new things, and it ends up with like, okay, let's go and give lots of stuff away to lots of deserving folks. It's okay, it's saccharine, which reminded me of how real A Christmas Carol isn't saccharine exactly. It's not cloying. Yes, it has got those good messages and things like that, but I don't think it's quite, I don't think it teeters over into being what's another word for saccharine? A sort of okay, thanks for that. You know what I mean. You know what I mean.
Cloying,
yeah.
oversweet.
It's not quite that. But one interesting thing about it is it actually it references A Christmas Carol itself. So the little girl reads A Christmas Carol, falls asleep, has a dream. Yes, so it's sort
That's
of
the Louisa M. Alcott one.
Yeah. Which is okay. Yeah. Turning to comics.
As we always do.
Yeah, so Classics Illustrated were line of comic books, came out mid-20th century, and they presented classic tales as comic books. And part of the thank you there.
You're welcome.
Part of their shtick was to sort of compete with what I think of as real comics, with your superheroes and stuff, with even better
Real
stories.
Comics were Bunty and Mandan.
Yeah. Well, so they did A Christmas Carol, as you would expect, and it's still in print. It's a pretty good version. It's the artwork looks a bit scratchy and old, but
My own story, exactly.
Yeah, well, don't we all? Yeah. It's got all the bits. It does the story pretty well. Yes, I'm not quite sure Scrooge would have said empty. He's looking around his house, he's heard the ghostly things. Empty as I should have known. Guess I'll have my gruel and go to bed. I don't think you'd quite say guess. Yeah.
No.
But we do learn precisely how much money he gives to the charity guys.
Oh, jolly good at the end.
£20 is what he
You
gives
said
them.
no spoilers.
No, I didn't. I said
you
there will
didn't?
be spoilers.
Oh, sorry.
So
I've spoilt it
if
now.
if that bothers you, yeah, it doesn't sound like much now, but they helpfully say £2,250 today, and that was in like 1950 or something. So Classics Illustrated, as always, pretty good. Turning to those very proper comics, the Spectre is a superhero who is also like a ghost. So he ought to be one to interact with spirits. And in this story from, 2002, it's got some quite nice ideas in it. So in this, the idea is that human beings generate sort of thought forms, things loads of people believe in, like are manifested in some sort of spiritual plane. So that includes Dickens himself, and that includes Scrooge, who's the kind of mayor of a scary, miserable city. If the world we left behind represents all the dreams and magic, all the hope and forgiveness of the Christmas season, then this deplorable slum is its opposite in every way. So this Scrooge mental thought form, his beef is, look, I'm remembered as famous miser, not the good man I become in like a little bit at the end of the story. So that's his kind of supervillain motivation.
That's reasonable though.
Well, yeah,
It's
yeah,
reasonable.
I'd be upset by that.
Yeah.
So that's what the Spectre has to deal with. Then there were a couple of Batmans as well. Batman Noel is a graphic novel by Lee Bermejo. Artwork's pretty good. Starts with a epigraph. Or is it an epigram? I never know.
Oh, I don't know.
There is a passion for hunting something deeply implanted in the human breast. Charles Dickens. So, in this, I'll wave some pages at you. With respect to Charles Dickens, yes, you've got a snow-filled Gotham City. Batman's doing his thing. And basically, he's also a bit ill. So he's like, is he delirious?
Being snow falling down.
Oh, that's good. Yeah, act it out, act it out.
Snow falling down.
So, Batman is Scrooge, which works quite well if you think about it. Rich guy, solitary,
Miserable.
all about the job, totally driven, has a dead partner. So you'll have to, if you're not a comics person, you'll have to trust me that in the mainstream comics there is a dead Robin in the past, and
So it's not bobbing along. Then.
no, not anymore. So Bob Cratchit is the equivalent of him is a small-time criminal, so the kind of person who Batman would normally treat very harshly, irrespective of the time of year and stuff like that. So even though he needs the payoff he's going to get from the Joker for his bag manning activities, Batman's
just a Batman
like,
for the boys
I'm gonna.
uptown.
Kind of, yeah. So all of that's going on. The spirit of Christmas past is Catwoman reminding him when it all used to be fun, swinging through the skies, Batman smiling, Robin's still alive, all of that sort of stuff. So it works pretty well, actually. It's one of those kind of adaptations that isn't just the story represented again. It also sort of interrogates the original story and makes you think about it. Superman is the ghost of Christmas Present because he's all like bright and glowing and everything positive. And yeah, Batman can mend his ways. He can be, he can be more merciful. He can be more sociable. Surprisingly, there's another Batman story where pretty much the same things happen. In the Haunted Night sequence, it's actually a series of Halloween stories. Mm-hmm. So one of these Halloweens is basically A Christmas Carol, and it shows how the bones of the story can be adapted into different things. It works quite well as a Halloween story as well, with some similar ideas. Batman, he's too grim. You could think that Alfred the Butler would be the Bob Cratchit, but I think
no, he's too urbane and
he's well looked after, and he's kind of all
is.
licensed because he's the one who can be needling Bruce Wayne stroke Batman with kind of quips and kind of critique, really. But so instead of a Christmas Carol singer being sent away from Scrooge's house, you get the trick-or-treaters are too scared to go to Wayne Manor. Stuff like that. So that was very beautiful as well. The Teen Titans. The Teen Titans. Let us travel back to 1967.
Let us.
The Summer of Love has passed. The Teen Titans is a comic featuring... I'll put a picture up. Robin, Aqualad, Wonder Girl and Kid Flash. So 4 sort of younger sidekick characters in their own super team.
Aqualad.
Aqualad. And at the time, it was being presented in a very kind of teen-friendly way, as conceived of by DC Comics. So now you get A Christmas Happening.
Oh dear, no.
And this is great. It really is the best thing ever.
Is it?
Yeah.
The best thing ever.
It's the best thing ever. The best thing ever. It's also known as the TT's Swing-In Christmas Carol. So it starts off, there's actually quite an interesting idea embedded in this intro. So, fanatic ones, Charles Dickens has been long dead. His great books, his fabulous characters live on. In fact, his stories are so alive today that they keep on happening.
What?
So join you here, that fantastic foursome, ye Teen Titans, for a holiday happening inspired by the immortal pages of the greatest Yuletide tale of them all. So the idea of it's a bit like the thought form idea. You know, the story is so such a powerful myth that it actually reoccurs throughout time. There's a similar idea in James Joyce, albeit expressed at greater length. So now we have the four heroes sitting around in their headquarters reading comic books. 2 days before Christmas, and the silent snow falls secretly over a hillside in the country. Inside the hill, four famed figures, like everyone else, wait breathlessly for Santa. So Robin is reading A Christmas Carol. The others are reading comics. Hey Robin, how can you read that corny old tale? It's like nowhere. Check, says Kid Flash. Check, Boy Wonder. Get it. This Aquaman is cool, wet and wild. And the kid with him, he's Dynamite. Very funny, Gillhead, but I enjoy old stories about Christmas. Charles Dickens was quite a writer. But that story, says Wonder Girl, that story's definitely ungroovy these days. Who could believe in such uncool characters as Scrooge or Bob Cratchit, all that old jazz? Oh, I guess you're right, Wonder Chick.
God dear.
How about this, Mag? Now you're grooving, good looking. So anyway,
Yeah,
and then
please
one of these reenactments of A Christmas Carol happens, and the Teen Titans have to dress up. They masquerade as the three spirits to bring about a desirable end to what would otherwise be grim events on a junkyard in the city. Yeah, loads of jeopardy. Wonder Girl in a Santa outfit. It's the best thing ever. Right, so that's it for comics for now. I then pivoted to Adam Roberts' I Am Scrooge, his zombie version of A Christmas Carol, which was
It had to happen.
it was great. It's a science fiction adaptation of A Christmas Carol with zombies. It's pun-tastic. I mean, what Roberts really does is just showers you with partly with all the tropes, clever ways to tie into the original story, and although it turns into like a sort of cosmic time travel thing, only Scrooge can save the world sort of story, with lots and lots of puns, and really enjoyed that. It didn't feel at all disrespectful to the original. Also, this was still November when, as part of novelisation November, there was a prompt for reading an adaptation of some media you hadn't actually liked. So I thought the book of the film of the Disney A Christmas Carol, the one with Jim Carrey doing the voice, would be good, because we hated that movie.
I couldn't watch it. I had to hide in the kitchen. You may have heard me say this before. I was so embarrassed by it, I had to hide in the kitchen with my hands over my ears, going la 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 la. So not a single note of it got into
I
me.
might have watched another 5 minutes.
You watched it till the end.
Oh, no, I didn't.
you?
No.
Oh, okay.
No.
That must have been something else.
So adaptation. I read it. It's a bit easier to take when it's just text, but some of the same sort of excesses that made us dislike the movie are present in this as well. You know, everything's dialed up. People fall backwards, fly around, stuff like that. Even quite a quiet moment, like in the story, Scrooge has his dinner in a melancholy tavern. So it's like, yes, he's a miser. He has rubbish food. So in this, it's like what he eats is absolutely disgusting. So everything's dialed up in an unnecessary way, I think. So still not liking that. So at this point, I thought I was done now, but I had a birthday.
You did?
And Jennie had got me a fabulous present, which is a version of A Christmas Carol. It's the regular story. The thing here is the illustrations by Ronald Searle. So Ronald Searle was a very popular cartoonist in the second half of the 20th century, I suppose.
60s, 70s. Most famous probably for St Trinian's cartoons and Nigel Molesworth books, illustrations.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, I mean, I think revisiting his stuff, he's, as well as being really good at creating characters, he also creates kind of worlds, all of which in a very sort of distinctive way. I think he must have been a big influence on Ralph Steadman, actually, looking at them. So this, for the pictures alone, is very fantastic, and it's from the year I was born. So that's a lovely, lovely present.
I am good wife.
There is Scrooge being, I think so.
Thank you, darling. There's a surprising similarity in some of them illustrations between them and the subsequent year afterwards. It was Mr. Magoo.
Ah.
Some of the crowd scenes.
Oh, right.
If you look at Mr. Magoo, one can only think. That's the sort of thing. Mr. Magoo the Mr. Magoo illustrations are less detailed, but still got that kind of grotesquerie.
There's definite grotesquerie.
Yeah, but they're
There's a making of book about the Mr. Magoo I'd like to get at some point. So I thought I was done at this point, but Jennie also was handling the Advent calendar chores.
I was.
And QB Roll purchased a really good A Christmas Carol themed Advent calendar.
I did.
So you open the little windows, there's a little bit of text. Ghosts pop up.
Yeah.
It's really clever as a piece of cardboard engineering.
It's fantastic.
And I suppose that is an adaptation, really.
It is, because it's got bits of the actual text.
Yeah. So obviously you're doing it sequentially.
Yeah.
It's good.
Ghost of Christmas Yet to Come popped up out of the pavement today in a rather scary fashion.
Yes. Also, in the world of Lego, now whether this counts as an adaptation, I'm not sure. So this has got 3 characters from A Christmas Carol on their own book. See the pages, and it's a sort of rather lavish-looking Bob Cratchit house with Cratchit and Tiny Tim, and there's Scrooge outside. It comes with stickers, so it should have stickers on. Like that. That should be the spine of the book with the words, but putting stickers onto Lego feels wrong to me. You're mixing the things.
Can't cross the streams.
I don't think so. No, I mean, I'm sure Michelangelo didn't make a sculpture and then think, I'll just go to the local signage shop and get Go Faster stripes to stick on the side.
No, I doubt he did that.
So, leaving aside the Phonus Balonus versions, we have somewhere the Christmas books. The Christmas books, all the way back to the actual read-along that Casey Lumsden has devised. So that gives us The Chimes, a goblin story. Remember goblins?
Goblin.
Well, W.M. Swepstone might have got the goblins from The Chimes, the kind of follow-up to A Christmas Carol by Dickens, or from the Sexton and the Goblins, or there's a goblin story in Pickwick Papers as well.
Oh, right, okay.
So more,
Dickens was down with the goblins.
Yeah. So The Chimes, it's a bit weird. Good, liked it. Instead of spirits, you've got bells that seem to be big church bells that have this sort of mystical life. But there's some interesting moralistic stuff, not moralistic, interesting social commentary again about the conditions of poverty, and there's sort of characters espousing stuff you still hear now, really, about, well, of course the poor people, they could eat. Statistics show that they have quite enough money, and they could actually eat really well if they did these things,
if they died. And decrease the surplus population.
It's kind of revisiting that kind of thing, pretty good. The cricket on the hearth, more of a love story kind of thing. Quite enjoyed that. Not sure, got an awful lot of stuff. It's got your misunderstanding and reconciliation, the pageant of characters, which is a big Dickens thing. I'm coming to realise he's really good at creating these characters, and he's almost... his books succeed if he creates characters that people become like fans of, almost. And the sort of accept them as like types that they recognise in real life.
They get to be bywords for all. Well, like Scrooge is a byword for being mean.
Yeah. And sometimes they're just sort of eccentrics, I suppose.
Yeah.
But I think
he's a big believer in nominative determinism, isn't he?
Absolutely,
Dickens.
yeah. Sticks the noms on people, and that's what they're like. The Battle of Life, a love story, doesn't really work quite so well. It has got some great characters in it. The story here seems like something we've heard lots and lots before, but there's love story, confusion stuff. I would have preferred if there's an idea that people live on a battleground where there was a terrible battle so long ago nobody remembers what it was. So underneath where they live, there's all these kind of fallen soldiers. I was sort of hoping that would not just be an intro, that they'd come back and be involved, but it was not to be. Yeah, well,
let you down.
It's fine. And then The Haunted Man. Now that's a really good story. I think if it wasn't a novella, it would be in anthologies and what have you, as just a classic ghost story. Little bit hard to follow. It's partly an idea, I'm sure it's been in loads of different science fiction stories, of like, what if you could have painful memories removed from your mind so you couldn't remember them anymore?
Isn't that the basis of Eternal Sunshine of the Spotless Mind?
Oh yeah, I suppose it is. Yeah.
A film I hated.
Yeah, maybe we just don't like Jim Carrey films.
Well, it's that of course.
Coupled with a kind of Midas touch in reverse thing, which is not only, well, what if that could happen? What if everyone you met, it was happening to them as well, so it's spreading. Again, weird but interesting. So, good stuff there from your man Dickens, the real guy. There are further Christmas stories. So I think after that, he was more into using his Christmas issues of his various journals to have a Christmas issue where he would write a short story as an intro and then other people would carry it on. So might get to some of them another time. I thought I was finished, but I thought, hang on, strange, I've not read any Marvel comics. So I had a look at Marvel, and there is a Marvel zombie story. Yes, it's A Christmas Carol with zombies again. But this one's done very differently, and interestingly, somehow manages to be incredibly faithful to the original story, just dialed up with the zombie horror aspects, and does an interesting thing with the zombie stuff where they're specifically related to the idea of the surplus population. So this zombie plague comes out of the prisons and workhouses, as mentioned by Scrooge in famous passage. So the surplus population, so all of that thing you get in zombie, movies, etc. The excess. There's so many of them. All of that, and the hunger, is translated into zombiedom. Works really well.
Interesting.
Then back in the 70s, Marvel kind of copied the Classics Illustrated stuff with their own series of Marvel Classics comics. So it was like classic stories done in the mighty Marvel manner, including A Christmas Carol. And it's quite good. It's presented in a very comicsy way, like sort of dramatic angles and comic book lettering, like this like this Marley's Ghost lettering. The characters tend to look quite sort of quite well built and almost superhero like. So the Ghost of Christmas Past is extremely well muscled. It looks like a sort of superhero Jesus.
Isn't he supposed to be a skellybot?
Yeah, no, there's
Christmas present.
Past is
he's
a glowing
supposed to be a little kid,
sprite,
isn't he?
really. Yeah. So that's interesting. Even Scrooge himself is actually pretty well muscled when you eventually, for some reason, get to see him.
It's all that lugging them bags of cash around.
Yeah.
That's one thing I like about the Mr. Magoo. It's the only version I've seen where Scrooge is shown actually taking delight in his money.
Well, he gives the charity guys what looks suspiciously like a wad of dollars in
Yes.
this. And also it's written with the sort of the weird emphasis you get in comic book blurb, where occasional words are like in bold to create this sort of extra emphasis. So Marley was dead. Yes, old Marley was as dead as a doornail, and Ebenezer Scrooge knew it. So
Good.
very comicsy, weird way to end up. All of that over reading A Christmas Carol hasn't spoiled it for me. I would still happily read the original again. I'm sure we will listen to, otherwise experience an adaptation or two.
Yeah.
Not counting those things where it's sort of either referenced or kind of is hidden in the DNA of the story. Those have been my adventures in A Christmas Carol and related tales.
So, here's what I think. Well, I read some of it somewhere and I made the rest up myself. Spiritual change in the Scrooge model. Single cataclysmic experience engenders lifetime spiritual change.
As far as we know.
As far as the story goes. And the story basically says that's what happened and that's what will happen to anybody who undergoes this once in a lifetime spiritual cataclysmos.
Yeah.
However, a more realistic model of genuine spiritual change is another seasonal movie, not a Christmas movie, Groundhog Day, where in order to achieve real change, Bill Murray repeats the same thing over and over and over and over and over again. I remember in the making of bit of it, what's his name? Is it Harold Ramis?
Yeah.
Says that he wanted to give the impression that Bill Murray had experienced the same day, not hundreds or thousands of times, but millions of times.
Wow.
And that's what it takes to break habits, to break spiritual habits, is you need to overwrite them because they've had a long time to germinate and that. So yeah. Whereas
it's a possible weakness of the Dickens A Christmas Carol that Scrooge starts getting converted really early on, during the Christmas Past bit. He's almost like, I get it now. It's going to be like, this is what I'm going to be like, and I've got to stop it. And so he's doesn't take an awful lot.
No.
Mind you, I mean, yeah, like you say, it is cataclysmic.
Yeah.
I think if the signs and wonders were that direct, we'd all be converted to better
But what
people.
generally happens is everybody who has that experience kind of, oh yeah, everything's changed, I'm going to be a nicer person. And then gradually you just start falling back into old habits. And I know this because it's happened to me on a daily basis.
Well,
Good. Groundhog Day.
there's one
not
way to end a
Christmas
video
Carol.
like this, I think, which is to say, as it says in the Teen Titans, the modern day equivalent of Tiny Tim, check Titans, best wishes to all for a swinging and groovy new year. And God bless us everyone.
God bless us, everyone.